Good evening. We're picking up where we left off. Congratulations, Jake Strong, on being first. We're picking up where we left off on Monday. And it looks like we're doing some digressions. Along a meridian pulsing with magical energy, a secret scheme slithered and writhed to track the source. Dorothea Coyette heads north. Thank you for the headpats. What lay in store for her there? This must be Kanda. Yuisho says his base should be here, but the base doesn't seem to be the source of the spell. The disturbance of the meridian is growing stronger. The magic user is up ahead. Huh. It's too late. What? Such power! Magical energy is flowing in all directions. It seems they're trying to control something. The target of this spell is... a servant. Oh. Rogue assassin Li Xuan. Versus non-rogue assassin, whose name I don't actually know off the top of my head. Was it ever, no, it was not. Okay. You said they were trying to control people? Correct. Could you not tell them that Rogue Spear's appearance? I just assumed it was somebody who didn't fear God. Let's go. Oh god, my bones. They're missing. I had difficulty with Rogue Assassin on a good day. I might have to drop the difficulty for this digression with normal Assassin. If the fight continues at this phase, I am almost certainly going to lose. These riposts are nice, but I'm taking hits along the way. Oh, also, the other day I found out that, you can't change the difficulty level, you can't change the difficulty level in the middle of a fight. But rather than graying the option out, it just removes it entirely. We can be an apprentice, weird snake man thing. It's very important to them that we not skip these for some reason. Let's see how much easier this is on apprentice mode. Alright, I'm taking like no damage and I'm ripping through his shell gauge, so substantially. Our opponent is also an assassin. I wonder if my assassin can keep up with the rogue. Are you testing me, princess? I'm not a princess, and no, I don't think you'll lose. A spell to control heroic spirits. How intriguing. But pity it is that they're no better than puppets. It might be a trick. Don't let your guard down. Yes, pop. And Rogue Assassin is dead. We may both be assassins, but fighting a puppet is no contest. You may be right, but a tough foe is a tough foe nonetheless. I don't know how many there are, but we can assume that all rogues are being controlled. Under these circumstances, it's too risky to venture far into enemy territory. Dorothea, I don't think you understand how assassins work. We shall pull back for now. I'm curious about how Saber and Lancer's fight ended. Assassin? What is it, Dorothea Koye? If that is what you have decided, let us return to Yokosuka. Eh? Yes, of course. Let's go. So I guess that the reason Assassin ends up taking issue with Dorothea is because she's, like, not assertive enough? That's my guess, anyway. Progress the ritual into Koshikawa. Oh, actually, I might have to do Li Xuan. Just in case. Here we are, a proper fight at the right difficulty level. Just with Yori and Saber instead of Assassin. This guy definitely seems more like a timing/memorization thing, which I'm not very good at. Like, his entire gimmick seems to be that he doesn't have tells, which is what I usually need. Oh well. I'll make it work. I also need to remember to buy food again. I keep forgetting to do that. Granted, I do have quite a lot of it at this point. Part of me occasionally thinks that I should switch styles. But then the rest of me is like, but my swords only give extra power in Void. It's actually a tiny bit annoying when Saber puts a Link Strike directly on top of me when I'm trying to finish a combo. Oh, it is what it is. Where were we? Koshikawa? And now I am a pig.
あのはぐれ、おそらくキャスター。今は急ぎ、モーリュを探し出さねば。より、君の鼻を信じるぞ。
I still think that it'd be better if they like turned him into a fox. And then like didn't turn him back. Oh well, there is no accounting for taste. Indeed, pigs are tasty. If only we had one at hand. It's always really satisfying once the shell gauge is gone to just start seeing the health bar disappear in massive chunks. I like how you can see the seam on, like, the shading and the texture of the pig that is Iori. Particularly on the underside, where the textures edges meet up. It's always fun to spot those. Somebody didn't set their normals right. I have a superpower. You say this, but like it's so obvious. Like there's a line very clearly like down the middle. You see that? Anyway. Yes, to Lucky 13, welcome. You garbage eyes, that's unfortunate. Just keep in mind that it's garbage can, not garbage cannot. You'll find things you can do.
天地自然にあふるる力、ここに集いて刃となす絶技発揮怒涛
That one only on the left was like, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was like that. And they're dead. And then she turns me back to being human, which is a step above pig, but a step below fox. And then we walk very, very slowly. I made some rice today. I decided to try like a different brand because it was like a pre-packaged like rice portion thing. And it said Chinese style rice, and I thought to myself, I've had rice from like authentic Chinese restaurants, it tastes really good. Maybe this will taste like that would be nice. It did not. I suppose that's the difference between Chinese and Chinese style. It's like inspired by Chinese rather than actually being Chinese. It's not bad tasting, it's just not what I was hoping it would be. It also smelled really, really pungent. So I'm probably not getting it again. You might notice that the backdrop here is on fire. That's a reference to how things combust if you raise their temperature enough. Most of the input display disappears on the white screen. Makes sense. It's translucent. Fun fact, the main difference between images that are capable of supporting transparency and images that aren't is the existence of a fourth data channel. Because most images, the way that they work is they are essentially a two-dimensional array of like cells, and then each cell has like 3 color values, like how red it is, how green it is, how blue it is. Images that support transparency have a fourth channel called alpha, which represents how transparent they are. You can encode some really fun things in textures. If you can like mentally unpack like the different color channels into just like data. I would demonstrate, but I don't have anything set up for it. But like, for example, you could take like 4 grayscale images and put them all into one single image by just making them the color channels of like a colored image. And the image itself would look like gibberish, but like a computer could peel it apart and like access the individual like streams of data that you wanted. Oh, that's fast. I'm not sure how to handle that one. Saber hurts when they hit you. Yeah, it's kind of like the visual equivalent of like hiding an image in a spectrogram. Like you hide something in a channel of an image that like wouldn't necessarily be looked at as closely. Saber is kinda kicking my butt. Saber doesn't have a Saber doesn't have a shell gauge, so I just kind of have to do better. Reverse are definitely the way, I think. I think there was a cutscene in this fight at about halfway, but then I actually had to finish the fight. I don't recall. You would think that by now I would have memorized Saber's combos, but in fact I have not. Next time I'm at my workshop, I should shove a bunch of things into gem creation so that I can stock up every time I end up back there. Because I do find myself burning through gems. And it's not like I need items for anything else ever again. Oh, I did not have to finish the fight. Alright. I think that might be where Assassin betrays Dorothea. Oh. What a splendid moon. A perfect night for a drink. Don't you find it wasteful to spend such a night steeped in thought? I can't hide anything from you. But it's nothing. Nothing crucial, at least. Maybe it's because I saw your noble phantasm, but I had a dream about your life. Servant and master share a connection. They can even glimpse into each other's pasts. So, what'd you think? The life of a man who succumbed to illness before fulfilling the promise to his lord. It was vivid and blindingly bright. I see. I'm the one who asked, but being told straight to my face is a little embarrassing. I feel like I witnessed the most magnificent life possible for man in my dream of you. Please, no more. More importantly, Master, may I join you for a cup? By all means, drink your fill. Oh, thank you for the hydration.
Master,
you said you wanted to restore your country, Ming. I did tell you that. The Wu, whom I served, as well as Wei and Shu, fell to the Jin. The Jin, too, is now no more. Han, Sui, Tong, Song, Wan. No kingdom, no matter how glorious, can avoid its ruin. Looking back on history, every country falls eventually. Why do you struggle against it? However difficult it may be, my wish is not so easily abandoned. What is dead can never return to life, he says while talking to a servant. But if miracles really exist in this world, then maybe they can bring back what was forever lost, His Majesty's kingdom. With a miracle from the waxing moon, it must be possible. Surely a man of your worldliness wouldn't cling to something as big as a miracle. No. For you, only a battle as brutal as this is worth fighting. You could say that, but the waxing moon ritual is a painstaking battle indeed. No word of any side falling yet. Someone could get the jump on anyone at any time. Right, and our alliance with Saber. How long will that... Archer, what's wrong? This... Master, forgive me. Get away. It's just like with that berserker. Hurry and get out of here. Somewhere, anywhere that I can't reach you. You can tell that he's an archer because he's using a sword here. You think I just leave you and run, Archer? I beg of you, don't make me kill my own lord. And then unless the story diverges here, we gotta go kill Archer now, I believe. Let me craft gems. What is this thing? Book of Resolutions? That sounds awesome. It's worth a lot of magical energy. I'm legit just gonna throw in all of my magic materials for this. Now, I know that, Zhang just contacted us for, like, an emergency, but I think I need a nap. To Akasaka. There it is. I should also probably save my game. You know, there's probably a limit to Saber's hydrokinesis, but I kind of wonder why they don't just extinguish everything. Like, maybe they're saving their power for the fight, maybe they just don't care. Hard to say. He got me on the backswing. Unfortunate.
無駄だ。合図をくれより。無駄だ。すかさず追い出せ。見つけまい。
I do enjoy the little blood splattering noise when he cleans off his swords after a fight like that. Imagine getting into like a direct muscle off with a guy this size and winning. Really, Iori is simply built different. Omae wa mou shinderu. Yeah, the Cell versus Kenshiro short from TFS was really, really good. There's actually a recording of when they debuted that short at a convention, and it's very funny on its own merit. There's something that I just find very, like, appealing about seeing other people laugh at the same things I laugh at. Not quite what I was going for, but if it works, it works. Am I ready? Excellent question, Saber. The first time I fought him last playthrough, he kind of beat me, but then I like ended the night and came back, and the next night I just beat him in one try, I think. So I'll probably be alright. I try not to be arrogant, but it's also good to be like aware of like what you are good at. Oh, was I having a tummy ache that day? I forget. They all blur together. He's like, they'll never see this coming. I'll teleport from where I was standing to where I was standing. They'll expect me to go anywhere else, therefore this is the last place they'll look. I wonder if damage bonus from like fire stance low health applies to things like link strikes or affinity skills. I like how the archer class servant managed to miss a completely stationary target from like 3 feet away. That was pure chance. I wish I could say that I stayed there to not get hit. But it was mere serendipity. Noble Phantasm. Nothing new. Well, it's not entirely true, he's got a new shell gauge. And now I'm on fire. I'm pretty sure that this is what people mean when they say you gotta fight fire with fire. They specifically mean in FateSamurai Remnant, when you catch fire, go to fire stance. I just had a thought. I wonder if Saber's like memento ring is a thing that I need to like farm up on New Game Plus by doing digressions. I'm not actually sure, come to think of it. Like maybe it only activates on things that haven't been done before? That's it. I don't know if I actually want to increase Saber's affinity. I'm already getting too many link strikes as it is. I don't know if I can handle more. I think not actually a bad thing, it's just kind of funny. Oh, does Iori only do the swallow cutter thing if he's in void stance? That's kind of cool. And it makes sense. My thanks again to both of you. You have my gratitude for stopping my friend Archer. I wasn't able to fulfill his wish, but we did all we could given the circumstances. I've lost my ability, my right, to fight. It's over. When all else fails, retreat. Jing? Jing Xinggong? What do you plan to do now? I still have my own battlefield outside of this ritual, so I must return to it. Oh, thank you for the hydration. My brother has procured ships in Nagasaki. I'll head there with Lord Yorinobu's help. Then you're leading Japan? I'm surprised how quickly you can prepare. I never intended to stay long. The foreigners cannot remain in Ada forever, out my bones. I'm back, and I'm in my original form. What little time I have left here, I will spend in mourning for my friend. I see. For what it's worth, I wish you well. I'm sure you'll find success in your ventures. Jing? Parting is never easy, is it? If only I had a general like you among my troops. I asked once already, but I'll ask it again. Won't you join my cause, Miyamoto Iori? Jing, my answer remains the same. That won't be possible, right? Sorry, I know your answer already, but I had to ask. It's alright. I think it's time to take my leave. The world is vast, but it all lies under one sky. Perhaps we are fated to meet again. When that time comes, I'll treat you to a feast, the finest cuisine of Fuzhou. He's tougher than I gave him credit for. Jing treated Archer as a friend, not merely an ally, as an irreplaceable companion. Maybe this is Jing's way of putting on a brave face. It could be. Are you okay, Iori? Jing definitely considered you a friend as well. A battle companion, at least. But this is how it should be. Let's go, Saber. We have our own duty awaiting us. Iori definitely feels a lot more sociopathic on this route. Thank goodness. Oh, he's crying. Even after all I've seen, there's still room in my heart to grieve over a fallen friend. I'll laugh in the face of danger and keep trying to be a person you would be proud of. And I'll get up again, no matter how many times I fall. Watch over me, my friend. Zajoji. Also, yeah, pointy toes on a shoe has never really been my thing either. Good old kill. was weird. I wonder if I shouldn't have made my swords fire stance boost instead. Go to bed. Let's go. Ah, my bones. Oh, that hurt. You know, I kind of totally forgot this entire time that switching with Saber was an option. I've gotten so used to just doing everything with Yori. It's really satisfying to just set that up and wait for it to go off. Also, come to think of it, I've kind of been neglecting wind stance quite a bit. I don't think I've used it pretty much at all since I got Fire and Void. I think I used it a couple of times for like the curiosity, and that was it. Or like to unlock nodes in his stream. I did not get the timing on that right, but I lived. Little did Lancer realize I was very powerful. That was the skill from the Earth Tree that lets me come back to life once per fight. I should probably use some of this affinity I've been generating. And then he evaporated. We are now temporarily allied with Dorothea. I think this is where we're hunting down the source of the spell and she helps us break in. My memory's a little bit fluffy. Fuzzy, rather. Fluffy is the rest of me. Aya releases her servants because she's like, I don't actually have the mentality to be a master. Even after Kai is kidnapped by Lancer, Yori and Saber manage to rescue her. though not without consequence. An unseen evil, heroic spirits gone berserk. Strife, schism, and finally, a malevolent force wrests control of the ritual. I still have no clue who Caster might be. I might get more insight if I wasn't skipping the cutscenes that include them, but it is what it is. New characters have become available in Battle Recollections. I wonder who that might be. Does it mean like to fight, or does it mean like to play as? I suppose I could very easily just check. It's the boxfish things. They say you are what you eat, and I guess this is what happens when foxes eat too much fish instead of chicken. Ruler is like I would never let somebody command me. You're gonna get an ice cream cone in the upcoming break? Good idea. I would also get ice cream, except the bowl that I would put ice cream in is currently occupied by leftover rice from dinner. And he died. I will say, the eyes on these foxes are very pretty. I just had a thought. I wonder if there's like an achievement for having like multiple types of afterglow active at once. That sounds like the sort of thing that I would add. Like, have every afterglow active at once. Don't know how possible it is, but... And it's dead. Oh, poor Ari is not here. Oh wait, no, she's been mind controlled, that's why. Oh, whoops. Did not need to start an aggression. Oh well. I was trying to get indoors so I could take a nap. I don't think I can end a digression early. Oh well.
かやちゃんかい？
雷も
This won't take too long
とりあ
though.
えず行ってみるか。
That said, I think before continuing with this, we're gonna take a 5-minute break. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom, anything that would take you about 5 minutes. I will see you shortly. I return. We'll just get through this as fast as possible.
竿も持たずに釣り？それに川ならすれ違っているはず。
This whole sequence does kind of amuse me a bit. Because, like... we know that she's got, like, nothing against Saber. In fact, she's like a loving wife, so... this whole cat and mouse thing feels very playful. Like, at first I thought something nefarious was going on, but in retrospect there's nothing bad with it, I think. I hope. Maybe there'll be something awful in New Game Plus. Probably not. We'll find out. I noticed that I have a full Noble Phantasm gauge, and I'm kind of thinking to myself, I wonder what the funniest thing to use it on would be. Like, the responsible answer is like... you know, shell gauges. But it would also be really funny to just, like, absolutely annihilate some guy. Rather than having ice cream, you opted out because the ice cream cones weren't cold. Maybe I'm unenlightened, but I feel like the ice cream cone doesn't have to be cold. Like, that's the ice cream's job. If anything, I would welcome the thing that my hand is in contact with being room temperature. Oh, they're like the pre-made ice cream cones, gotcha. I thought you meant like empty cones that you would like dollop ice cream into on your own. That makes more sense. I don't know why that overlay opened, but it did. Weird. Yoshiwara. There it is. Yeah, if they're meant to be frozen, then absolutely do freeze them. Well, hopefully they're good once they're refrozen. I know that sometimes when I have ice cream and it like melts and refreezes, usually when like the power goes out or something, it ends up not being very pleasant. It's like weirdly separated. So fingers crossed things go better for you. Oh, thank you for the hydration. Yeah, it's never fun when ice cream separates into ice and cream. I can never quite recombine them. Ice cream is a protected term in some places. That's interesting. What might be an example of, like, illegal ice cream? If you happen to know. I'm now curious. The percentage of ice cream, gotcha. I'm reminded of how Subway isn't allowed to claim that they sell sandwiches. Because, like, the composition of their bread is, like, too sugary. So it's legally considered cake, yeah. This Sony simply is not having a good day, I think. Except for that one stomp, he got a good stomp in. We have to save one more people from monsters. You know, I wonder what the Soul Eater does with souls after it eats them. Like, this sounds like it might be existentially horrifying, and I'm not sure. I've been saying chop into kibble a lot, but I guess with a cursed lantern it would technically be chop into confetti. Because it's made of paper instead. Leyline conflict. Awesome. I forget what the premise for this one is. Oh, it matters not. I will simply win anyway. Oh no, they've got Arya.
Saber.
Right, so Saber. Oh right, this was the one with the fake ley lines. I remember now. There shall be none of that from you, thank you very much. Alright, I remember now. I have to make it to Rogue Caster and she fixes the ley lines for me. There she is. Yuri, reinforcements, your guard down. You know, I just had a funny thought. What if I just took this whole thing without actually making contact with Caster? That could be entertaining. Though I imagine it's just not possible. I think there's like a thing later on that like you need to capture ley lines that are not visible until she fixes them. I might be mistaken.
確かに霊これが本来の霊脈ということ。
Oh wait, the ley line is clearly under some unusual stress. This is the real ley line? We were completely off track before. No time to be impressed, Yuri. We're relying on a thread of a ley line for telluric energy. Well, sorry, but that's about all I can do for you. Being a rogue servant is all kinds of inconvenient. No, you've done more than enough. I really appreciate it. Pounded fields can no longer be destroyed. You know, I'm always sassing Darting Dragon, or Earth Arts rather, but I think it's just the ticket to go here. This is very much overkill, but I don't mind. I charge Valor fairly quickly, if memory serves. Probably some more stuff coming. Yes. That was a mighty strike to the head there. That felt powerful. They're gonna go there, which is not okay. Unless I do that.
Yoshi.
And he's down, except not really. I like how it pops the throw reminder for the Noble Phantasm. Like, you wanna fire it off just for fun? Yeah, Saber can't go that way. Saber can go that way instead. You know, it occurs to me that since these foxes are like part fish, they really should be more able to handle Saber. It's like Saber's water element, and fish don't have any trouble in water.
天地自然にあふるる力、ここに集いて刃となす絶技発揮怒涛。
I wonder, if a fish suffocates on dry land, is that technically drowning? It's like they are suffocating because of the wrong water level. And the fox is now sushi.
まあこんなものだろう。
Yori can go this way. I'll be joined with Saber. And we can go to Wayno.
なんとも異様な雰囲気じゃな。気をつけて進めよ、より。
We can't break through the door, but we can go around it. Because Saber is essentially a motorboat.
行くぞ。
I like how we're able to like surf on water directly in the Link Strike. So Saber kind of just stole that boat for the love of the game. I could have sworn I'd already touched this, but we take those.
行くぞ。
I'm pretty sure I still haven't found the Spirit Ponds for Saber and Assassin. Or Rogue Saber and Rogue Assassin, I should say.
澄み渡る天のごとく
Incidentally, no matter how fun I'm making it look, please don't put foxes into blenders in real life. It's not healthy. I like how there's just a parasol here, and what looks like a bunch of fish just open and abandoned. Then Dorothea helps us break in. And then we encounter our first spiders. Maybe you will put foxes in blenders. You misunderstand. The person whose health is at risk is yours. It won't end well for you. How about yours? That's a case-by-case thing, I think. And it's dead. I'm really trying not to be too bothered by the fact that they call these foxes. Like, do they really have to be fish? I feel like they didn't have to be fish. Like, sometimes creativity goes too far, you know? Like, at a certain point, it just stops being a fox. Oh well. Doesn't Lancer fight us here? I was actually thinking of the other Lancer, but I was technically right. Depending on the specific, like, setting, Kitsune may or may not be inherently undead. Like, I've seen some where specifically a Kitsune is the soul of a dead fox, rather than, like, a fox that has become more powerful. Get washed, nerd. That was expensive, but it was also fun, so I think it was worth it. I like setting off giant explosions. I would like to touch the ground, please, thank you. Yeah, I just realized there's no reason not to spam the affinity things in particular. Because, like, it'll just go back to Viori after all. So anyway, about that. Okay, one down. I have like no hit points and no healing for the other one, but that's fine. It's only Assassin who I struggle to dodge typically. Oh no, I got assassined. We'll just try that again. Oh, it's gonna send me all the way back here? That's bothersome. I like how Saber won't intervene to defend another Saber, just Viori. Tsundere much, maybe? Also, I like how even mind-controlled Arya is just kind of like watching and laughing. Alright, fingers crossed this attempt goes better than the last one. I am definitely getting juggled here. What? Yeah, dealing with two of these guys at once with very, very limited resources is definitely proving taxing. I'll give it a few more shots, however. I definitely don't feel like it's impossible. Not at all. Thank you for the hydration. But I lived. Oh, thank you for the rotation. I didn't notice right away. Then Li Xuan shows up. I wonder why he looks like that. I'm pretty sure that outfit is, like, not from his time. I think I'm a little bit tilted. Like emotionally or physically? Because physically it should only be the normal amount. I do like lean towards the camera just a little bit for like a better angle. A ever so slight top-down perspective is basically the point there. Okay, one down. No healing. 3 pips of affinity. I need to basically take no more meaningful hits for the rest of the fight. Which is gonna be difficult, because Assassin tends to not have tells, and to literally, like, nothing personnel teleport right behind you. Like that. That's slightly annoying. I feel like if I had, like, one more rice fall, I could do this more easily. I mean, granted, technically any number of rice falls would let me do this more easily. That's just how having more resources works. Not the biggest fan, also, of how Lancer only needs to land one hit to just guarantee 18 more. But it is the way of things. Emotionally, I'll try to think of it as like one really heavy hit that comes out really, really fast. Specifically that attack. That one right there. I suppose I'll try treating this more like a Master Servant fight and focusing all my damage on just Lancer because he's the weaker one. And by weaker I just mean like the one with less health. Granted, taking my eyes off Assassin not necessarily the best idea. But in terms of like target choosing. His shell gauge is not, so I'll put damage into him. Unless he just gets it back immediately. Luckily it hit Lancer anyway, so it's fine. They should kill Lancer. And that should kill Saber. I am now rotating. This will give me the power to overcome this complex challenge thing. I think if I was to verbalize the thing that's like bugging me the most, it's just the fact that like one little slip or like just getting pincered, you lose all your health. And as far as I can tell, there's no way out once you're in. Oh, thank you for the hydration. Other than to like wait for them to finish their combos. Hi, I'm Iori. You might be wondering how I ended up in this situation. Oh, I was hoping to get a Valor Strike in. Oh well. Ever so slightly bothersome. Thank you for the head pats. I appreciate them. I might consider loading the save and dropping the difficulty. But it's really close to the night anyway, so I figure I'll just keep trying. If I win, I win. If I don't, I can come back refreshed. We'll see what ends up happening. Can I take over the Saber in this fight? Yes, I can. Just not when I'm Saber. The other one. I don't think I've done a single, like, swapping with a servant of my own volition all day. Okay, it does look like landing the Valor Strike before being forced into Rogue Saber does make the follow-up fight easier, because Lancer has less health. Now, if only I was allowed to take actions. Can I just break both of them? Not that leash one's acting like it. I would like to come down. There we go. I have no healing left, Assassin has a full shell gauge, and I'm dead. I'll give it one more shot, then I'll call it for the night. Oh, thank you for the rotation. A little bit extra power in my time of need. You know, I wonder, if we summoned Saber in, like, the modern day, and, like, gave them the opportunity to play Power Wash Simulator, I wonder if they would enjoy it. Or I wonder if they would see it in the same vein as if, like, somebody from this era got taken to the future and allowed to play a game where, like, you clean things by shooting them with bullets. Like, why are you using a weapon for this? Oh, gosh dang it. Maybe it's not an HP threshold, but like right after Lancer's shell is broken? That's really annoying either way. That was technically inefficient. I think I overhealed with the rice ball, but I also don't think it's going to matter that much in the end. I wonder if maybe the play is just... disregard everything except for keeping both servants on screen and just dodging everything. There goes Lancer's shell. I have no healing left. And I'm dead. Alright. We're gonna call it there for the night. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it each and every time. Thank you for the head pats. Next scheduled stream is on Sunday. It's a multi-world between Wind Waker, Link to the Past, and Hollow Knight, although I'm pretty sure I'm going to be clearing Hollow Knight fairly early on. I think. Next time I'm playing this game in particular is going to be on Monday. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful night, and I hope to see you again. Good night.